Okay, there we go. We are now recording. So, you missed the introduction, but Dirty River, happy to have you here. We're just going to be talking about the same big tech names we always talk about. So, you know, what I was saying is it's always fun to go back and see some of your guys' ideas. A lot of them work very, very well. People have a way in trading to always underestimate themselves a little bit. And, one of the big questions we get asked all the time is how do I start taking trades? How do I start taking my own trades? Obviously, all of you in Mastermind are going to have, a leg up if you aren't already doing it already. But what I always try to tell people is, you got to swing the bat. You have to try. Maybe you typically trade with $1,000 on your $1,000 in a trade, and you want to start taking some of your own trades. Just step that way back. Go back to, go back to one contract, go back to $250, go back to $200, whatever it is, dramatically reduce that position size, but start putting your foot in the door because, like I've told you, I've hosted yeah, God, I mean, 200 classes or more probably for OOT. And I'd always love to ask people for trades that they're looking for. Of course, most people focus on those big tech names. A lot of us do, or SPY and QQQ. But it's always fun to go back and look at some of the other names that people have talked about. And, I'll pull up a chart on something that I've never ever traded before, and I'll have levels on it. And it's always fun to, just from somebody asking me to pull up something new in one of my lectures that I've obviously forgotten about, but it's always fun to see, did it work, didn't it work? People will tell me, look at this stock, and I don't remember how many stocks are in the market, but 10,000 or something, and so it's always fun to see those ones that we don't all look at day in, day out sort of deal. But so with that, we're going to get started here. Like I said, maybe try to hold on those questions till the end. But as I'm going through here, I've been trying to do a bunch better of keeping track of uh, the chat. Try to answer questions when they come in. For anybody who comes to my OOT lectures, they know I'm pretty dang horrible on that. And so if you feel like I'm missing your question or anything at the end of the class, feel free to bring it up again. I probably missed it. So don't feel bad if I miss them and you just have to bring it up again. And so with that, we're going to start talking about SPY. Obviously, last week we talked SPY. I was sharing my chart all week. It had all of our plans in it and everything. This was our chart from last week. And then I had my notes. I'm going to try to share my notes faster. I never shared the whole notes last time, but on SPY last week, we had our notes on it where that they had reclaimed, or they had reclaimed two of those big areas on the chart, 524 and 531. Obviously, this was right back here. This was, our last Sunday class was here, and so had reclaimed those. We aren't looking for a bull flag or a bear flag. We aren't looking for a rising wedge. I said, hey, we're in an uptrend right here. The next major areas of interest for us, we're going to be 535.8 all the way, pushing up just a little bit. And then next areas of interest, we're going to be that 50% fib around 537.5. And then ultimately 540 was where we were looking to push up to. We really didn't ever even give that a chance. And then our only notes on being short on SPY last week were no enter short without giving up 531. But we said trend and really 530 because we didn't want to be short here into that trend, into any of that. We knew everybody was looking for, the bear flag or the rising wedge or whatever it was, but we were staying bullish above the levels we want to stay bullish on. So obviously SPY worked out real nice for us last week. If you were on the right side of it, it ended up, that trade plan worked out pretty dang good for us. And so now we're going to just move on to, what I want to look for on SPY going forward. And so these are the levels we're going to be watching, but I like to, treat these Sunday scans also kind of as a charting lecture, show you where the levels are coming from, the levels that I'm talking about, give you kind of my ideas. I went through and charted everything so I could have some slightly more specific levels when I send my write-up out after this. But so we're just going to clear this and we're just going to start fresh on it. We should probably rename this to this one because it'll be our new SPY chart. So again, we still want to take note of those same things that we've been watching. We have the major fib on the retrace from these highs up here down to these lows down here. Obviously, those were some pretty major levels that we were watching, and they worked for us. We had additional levels for anybody who we had levels right around fibs. That frequently happens in the market. That's, a big part of fibs is if you can line them up at the level, they're going to work really, really well for you. And so we always want to still be taking note of those fibs. However, we just absolutely blasted through every single one of our levels we had. We finished, dollars above it. And then even, to me, kind of most importantly, we broke this trend. And this trend to me was really the main thing to watch. That's where we were looking for that push up to. That's where we were kind of targeting 540. And then ultimately we gapped over it. And so the levels that we really want to watch, that we're talking about in here are major levels. And I said it last week, you really don't want to plan on SPY moving $5 every day. That's what I said, this day, last Sunday. Then SPY moved $5 every single day. So I'm sticking to my guns. I'm still saying that we don't, you don't want to be like rushing into trades and expecting the trades to run, $5 every day. The market is doing that. Who knows how long it'll keep doing that. So some of these levels that we're going to discuss today are, they're further out levels. There will always be intraday levels, pre-market highs, pre-market lows, previous day high and lows. It won't always just be, when we look at this chart from last week and we look at it on the 5-minute, I mean, it was pretty, insane how well it worked for us just following those levels. We would break above a level, retest it, and basically run to the next. And then we had a couple chop days holding the levels we wanted, again, holding the levels we wanted, and run straight to the level we want, break above it, again, track on this very next day, straight to the level we want, close around it, get good data over and over and over again, and eventually track up to some of these, higher levels that we didn't even have. We had them on the chart, but we sure didn't think they were coming. And so now we want to do the same thing for this week. We want to identify those major areas of interest that we have. So first one for me is obviously going to be this high right over here. You can basically call it 555. That it wasn't this level that caused the sell-off. It was news that caused this sell-off. But you're up here between the 78.6 fib at another very, very important level. And that, like I said, it wasn't this level that caused the sell-off, but it did result in, basically a $20 move in 24 hours on SPY. So very, very big level to take note of. And pretty dang close to where we rejected earlier. Next levels that I'm going to be looking at are just going to be these major highs here. And then these major highs up here where we kind of faltered for a few days and then we're finally able to break above it, 561-ish all the way up to, those all-time highs. And then of course, as with anything, you always want to take note of any major whole numbers in the middle here, especially as we approach these all-time highs. So we want to get something like a 560 on there. It is important to note that on these upside levels, we have very, very little data in them. And so what do I mean by that? These levels have been traded for some of them 1 day, some of them 2 days. You had a little bit of movement around them. So they might not be super strong levels. They're just, or they could end up being very strong levels, depending on the type of orders that are sitting there. And so for me on SPY, we have a pretty nice little cut and dry area here to be trading around. And then you always want to be aware of downside. And so the major levels that I'm going to be looking for are really going to be, this 553.45, obviously going to kind of be that line in the sand where, okay, maybe I can start looking short. And then really below there, the farthest, in my opinion, that we want to be looking is these June highs. We had that nice double top. We even talked about this before. I would have expected more faltering at them, but we really blasted above it. But we had these June highs at 550. So for me, we know we don't have a ton of information here. I always want to look for any, other really additional lows. And so if I'm short below 553, all I'm looking for, that 78% fib, all I'm really looking for is this move down to 550. We've seen bullish price action in the market. 550 going to be that big hole number. So you want to be aware of the next places of interest. And to me, it's these tops right here. We talked about these before. We've talked about it back here. This level has worked over and over and over again. By 547, I would, I know there's still more gap to fill. By 547, you really need to be getting more and more cautious on your shorts. Could this gap fill? Absolutely. But for now, staying above, the areas where we want to be, really above this, if we're staying above this 550 area, we should still be looking long on pullbacks. If we're able to reclaim that 555, hold it, that's when I'll start looking for the 550, basically 557 all the way up to 560 move. Do I think it'll come in a day? No, but it absolutely could come in a day. And so you can see here, we have a few more levels on these charts, and we just want to use them as price levels. Break above 555, we're tracking to 557, basically. That's how we want to treat these big daily levels. Do we think it comes in a day? Do we ignore bottoms like this? Absolutely not. Just because the level is $2 away does not mean that you shouldn't be trimming on the way up. As I said, there's going to always be some little major areas or intraday things. You always need to look at those. But for us on SPY, nice and simple, we're staying above that 78.6. I'm personally staying long on SPY. Not swinging long, not getting anything crazy on it, just, sticking to the bullish thesis. If we start to give that up, I'll look for some retrace, but I'll be looking as it more for retesting to prove it's ready to be outside of this trend. So for me, that's really my line in the sand, 550, 350 area. That's where I'll be trading around. If we're pulling back to it, that's where I'll be looking to catch bounces, anything like that. So that's SPY. Hopefully everybody gets it. Any questions? QQQ. So QQQ up next. I don't see any questions, so I think we're good. Tech, same story as SPY. Obviously, super easy. We wanted to be long on it. We were definitely looking long on it. We needed a few more reasons to be long on it. And we got all of those last week. It is important to note that, percentage-wise, QQQ is still down quite a bit more than SPY. So it still has a bit more ground to make up than SPY. I know SPY's down $20 or something, and QQQ's down just over $25, $28. So I know the dollar amount is different, but the percentage is larger on QQQ. QQQ still, kind of down in the dumps, coming up to some of these big resistance areas that we wanted to watch. And so that's what I have on here, 570, 554. These are just kind of off of these lows. I wanted to be able to incorporate a lot of these lows, and it lines up perfectly with this trend and the top of this candle. So to me, that's given us our really cut and dry level yet again to trade around. I'm still personally remaining cautiously bullish on it, but data can come out, all kinds of different things can come out. The only other thing that I want to take note of that I didn't put on here, but I just wanted people to see, is we do have a little bit of a gap to fill right here. And so if I'm looking to trade QQQ, I should have these on for you so you can see it. If I'm looking to trade QQQ, which I am, I like to trade QQQ, you always want to look at where these SMAs are. And so we, on big selling, we've had the 20 SMA cross below the 50 SMA, but we had the 50 SMA kind of flattening out and being reclaimed and held here. So for any of us that are looking to be taking some trades on QQQ, that should really be your, I'm long above, I'm short below sort of deal. Because if we're reclaiming this, I think that there is, personally, I would assume that there's going to be a pretty dang good chance that we're going to get a retest on it. Hopefully it doesn't come in the pre-market, but that 473, the 473, 37-ish area all the way down to 473 area is where I would be looking to get into this. However, there's a part of it that I don't like. And the part that I don't like about this trade is that if you're pulling back off of this, then you aren't looking for a ton of upside. You are more looking for this as a scalp to the upside. So I like the pullback trade on it. You, of course, just need to have your stop, you know, below there, 5-minute, 15-minute candle, whatever you like to trade. Stops below that SMA if we get the pullback to it. However, we need to remember that, and you know, same setup as SPY. Obviously, this isn't the level that caused the absolute dump, but we know that there's some orders waiting here on this candle that could cause issues for us. So if you are looking for this bounce, you're really looking for a couple of bucks at most. Maybe we poke above that 475.50 area, but I want, you know, you want to be cautious when you're buying calls this close to big resistance. However, if we're able to reclaim that 475.54, hold it, maybe 15 minutes, maybe an hour, look for the pullback to it. That's when I would start looking for a slightly bigger move on QQQ. Potentially, you know, final target going to be up here at this 480. Obviously, you don't want to, you know, miss lows, 477. Don't just hold for a $5 move, $4 move on QQQ. But if we're able to reclaim that 475.50 area, you're going to have a slightly wider stop, because really you're going to want your stop on the outside of the gap, you know, and we are looking for the gap fill. So for me, still cautiously looking long on QQQ. If we're able to get a day or so above this 475.50, and we'll see how the market's moving this week. Maybe we'll have another fun week. Maybe we'll have a much less fun week after a move like this, but we'll see. But that final target really going to be the top of the gap. If we end up getting above it, I put some additional levels up here, 484, you know, up to that 487 area, as really where I would start watching for us to sort of top out on this move, if we even move that far upside. I know we have NVIDIA earnings not this week, the following week, and so I do think the market's going to be looking forward to that. I'm sure we got plenty of data this week to keep our eyes on that could give us either the move up, or what I want to talk about next, the move down. And so what I would be looking for on QQQ is really going to be a break, you know, below the 475. If you're taking the break below 475 and, you know, in the bottom of the gap area, you're looking for a move to the SMA. That's all you are looking for, is a move down to that 50 SMA. Again, it's just the other way, basically a $1.50 down. You do not want to be short leading into that for anything more than a scalp. However, if we're able to break below that 50 SMA, which is sitting 473.30, hold below that 50 SMA, that's when we can start looking for a slightly bigger move downside. And ultimately, my target is going to be this 466 to 468 area. However, you cannot ignore 470. So what I wrote in my notes was, if we're able to break below the 473.350 SMA, oh, and I didn't draw them on here. It's in my notes though. If we're able to break below that SMA, call it there. If we're able to break below that SMA, it is also the 61.8 FIB. I should have put this in there earlier. Also the 61.8 FIB. So we get a break and hold below that, then I start to have the confidence we push down to that 466, 468 area. However, when you're coming up on big whole round number like 470, you absolutely need to be aware of it. So as you can see on QQQ, both downside and upside kind of have some junk in the way. So for me, I mean, it makes sense for the market to move us here, maybe chop us around in this zone for the week. I would love that. And wait for that NVIDIA ER, or at least a piece of data to kind of move us out of this little constricted zone that we're in. And so for me, super simple. Upside, I want to see a break and hold to 475.54-ish. And ideally fill the gap all the way to 479, you know, 80, whatever it is. And then of course, if we really get to push and get above 480, 469, really going to be like the highest I would personally expect us to go, but we'll see, of course. And then for downside, break a 475 to the SMA and the FIB if you want to be risky. Otherwise, we want to see some holding below that FIB, below that 50 SMA, and then ultimately targeting 466 to 468 zone. So nice and simple trade right around where we are. I love trades when, the middle of the road is right where we are, and we can play whichever way the market gives us. We saw the unfortunate side of people being super bearish, couldn't shake it. And then now finally we have people flipping super bullish, but we have to see if the flip bullish was late or not. We will see what happens. So that's QQQ. Again, cut and dry, really just trading around that, 474, 475 area. Okay, sounds like we're all good there. Up next, Apple. Obviously, we're going to talk Apple. We talked Apple last week. So when we were talking Apple last week on the scan, notes on it were buyers showed up super heavy on let's see. Oh, I was reading the wrong one. Slows down to the, really big 200 level all the way down to here. And then that was actually the 78.6 fib on the really big move for the retrace, back down. And so now we're working on this retrace back up. We've reclaimed 50-day moving average. This was last week. And so what we were looking for was two different trades. We were looking short on our first push up here to this 20 SMA, which ultimately offered a decent short for us down to about the, 216 area, is about 217 area. So nice little short for us. Then for upside, we wanted to see, fib hold. We wanted to see SMA break. We wanted to see this 218.97 level break, and we wanted to see the trend break and hold. And so ultimately, that was what we got here. We wanted to see all of those things hold. Our ideal entry, we said, was 219. So we were 50 cents off if you're the stickler on those. And then for upside, we said if we are able to break above the 50 SMA, break above the trend, hold the 50% or 20 SMA, break the trend, hold above the 50% fib, we are looking to be long, ultimately targeting 222. And if the market is really able to start buying, then we will be looking for 224. And as we can see, we went well above that on Apple. So nice little trade for us there, gave us the entry. We're going to try to look for those same kinds of trades always. Next one we got. So here we are into this week. You might notice a few more levels on here this time, but this is I'm liking the Apple trade here. More than I was liking it last week until we were able to get those breakouts, but I'm liking the Apple trade here because we have a much more specific area to be trading in. And so that's what I like here. We were looking for that 224, 225 area. We got that push up to it. Well, when we're looking for an area like that, this is what, me and Flips and everybody has been trying to teach us: support and resistance, level to level, whatever you want to call it. When we break above that area, we now look at this area as our support. And so this is what we want to see hold. Especially the 225.57. But if you want to take that early entry on that bounce, that's really where you want to be looking, at least in my opinion. We've broken above the trend. We've broken above the levels we need to hold. And so how I would treat this trade is look for the pullback to 225.57 and then have our stops below this 224.86. So we're going to have about 70 cents of risk on the trade, but we're ultimately looking for about a $3 move up. Obviously, you want to pay attention to these highs over here, but since these are consolidation, I'm more concerned with this high, which also happens to line up with this high, which also happens to line up with where this candle opened, sold, broke above. I'm interested in this 228 area. And so for me, I think Apple's still looking constructive. It's a place where I would like to see it hold this level. If I'm looking to be long, I want to see the upside hold of 224.80 up to about 225.60. That's where I feel comfortable buying the dip down into, and then ultimately looking 228, then this 229 for where we, started this big old breakout, and ultimately 230.60, 230 area, kind of where the real selling started on Apple. Again, I'm not expecting the giant moves we got all last week, so these might not even be intraday targets, just places where if you are long, if you're in scalps on the day, you really want to be aware of them. However, This is also offering us a really nice downside trade because we can see, we were targeting this 224, 225 level on the trend break. We got that really nice. Well, we had this level in our mind as being the place the market might slow down. So to me, I think it's very important to have downside trades on the table as well. And this is, you might have noticed a lot, we have a lot of trades setting up how I like to trade them. Break below this 224.80, and I do not hate a short down to even, get Friday's lows, the 223, 224 area, and ultimately down to this 222.72. I have a hard time believing we'd really get past 220. If they wanted to hammer it back down to the 20 SMA, they might. But I would be targeting about, at most a $4 move down. You need to be trimming along the way, always paying attention of where rejections and things have happened. But watching this kind of stuff, that 222.72 is where I would start to be very cautious and maybe look for a breakdown with a bounce and a reposition short if you like it. And then this one's nice because it's the exact opposite way. If we've broken it, we're holding it for, 15 minutes or whatever it is, we're getting a retest up there, you got about a 75-cent risk on you. So if you're trading a weekly Apple or even a next week Apple, you're only going to be risking about, 3/4 of one delta, potentially looking for 2 to 3 to 4 delta on the other side. So really, really nice risk reward on that trade and really, really cut and dry levels. And so nice simple Apple trade, really a top watch for me going into this week. Last week, my one that and we're going to talk it next. My one that I was really on last week was Amazon. This week I'm really on Apple. I think Apple's going to set up a really nice trade for us. And so I'm watching it here. Of course, if you're taking these trades, always be aware of recent lows and highs as something, this is where we could get range bound. So, around this candle. So be prepared for that and make sure you're trimming at lows. Make sure you're trimming at highs if you're long or short. So Apple, any questions there? Okay, perfect. Next up, Amazon. Again, we're going to be talking just like we did last week. So last week in Mastermind, we said regarding Amazon, I said to me, it's offering a much more interesting and extremely cut and dry trade. In my opinion, there's one level on the chart that matters, and it was the daily 200 moving average. This was last Sunday. This was the daily moving average for us. And so we have the daily moving average, the 200-day moving average sitting right at 170. So in my opinion, I said all trades should be based around the 170, 200 SMA level. If we're able to get above that with volume to back it, we begin to look for some of those upside levels, looking for ultimately the gap fill all the way up. But the reasonable targets, we were looking for the 170, 139, 173.80, offered a really nice level for us as well. And then ultimately 176, we pushed a nice, little bit above that as most trades did. But so Amazon trade, had our trend break, had our 200 break, held our 200 into close. For anybody who's in my swing trading lecture, this is a swing trade I would have loved to take either off that little trend break or the 200 close. I'd love a swing on that. And so this week, looking at Amazon again, I like it. I like it slightly less than I liked it, as I said last week. But went above and beyond the expectations. We wanted to break and hold of that 200 and we got it. Held the 170 just perfectly. It was a really, really nice trade. So big thing to take note of in Amazon, still technically in a strong downtrend, still down, 25, $26 off of highs. So still technically in a strong downtrend. However, as with most tech names, the buyers have been here in force for the last, better part of 2 weeks. We've reclaimed the 200. We've now also reclaimed the 20 SMA, starting to see the 20 SMA curl up. And so I'm still looking long. And why am I still looking long? For a couple of reasons. And I know I already have my levels on here, but I'm looking long for a couple of reasons. One of them, this major wick right here, not saying this was the level that sent us flying, but I'm interested in that major wick. And then the other one that I'm interested in, I need to bring this, the other one that I'm interested in is this one right here, 175.90. So to me, we have this major wick here, and then we kind of have, this is where we started to take, we got the reversal candle. This is where we really bounced. I have interest in this zone. So yet again, I am on dip by mindset on Amazon. I think that it is offering 2 different trades one that will be slightly, it'll end up being a slightly higher risk, but if they want to keep buying the market, I think it's worth it to know where you might want to take the early entry and then know where your stop at is and look to reposition. As I always say, if we're entering here and our stop is here and our next entry is down here, the last thing you want to do is hold this thing for the whole move down, because now you need a really big move to break even. You want to enter, these are the two trades I'm looking for. First one, pull back to this 176.75, stops, basically 175.90, 176, somewhere in there. If we aren't going to bounce it, we'll know quick. And then you take the stop out. So small risk on that. Ultimately targeting, if we're looking for upside on Amazon, we're going to be looking for, let's see, I got, on my notes, I got them over here. We're going to be looking for, to me, and I want to zoom out so we can, of course, be looking where they're supposed to be. So first one that we're going to be looking for, pull back to this 176.75, ultimately targeting the 179.33. And why that far? Because of where the bounces are. We have some noise in here, we have some noise in here, but they're well contained between here. So this one, very nice risk reward. You're risking 80 cents a downside, looking for just shy of a $3 move up. Really, really nice risk reward on that. The next one that I'm looking for is going to be a pullback to these levels, a pullback where we hold these lows, kind of the bottom of the consolidations, big old bounce points, coupled with the nice 20 SMA right here. So if this trade doesn't work, this is where I'm looking long again. I don't care in here. I personally don't have interest in shorting it. Is there maybe a short trade? Sure. But for me, I'm looking for the pullback here and looking for the bounce up, ultimately targeting 179.30-ish area. Of course, taking note of intraday levels, but my favorite trade is the pullback all the way down to here, this 174, 175 area. Stops just below these lows, again, risking 75 cents to $1. And then upside, those same levels we were dip buying on, those are now our upside targets, because if we've broken below it and are bouncing, we've seen it not work once. So we want to be very, very cautious at these levels. If we're buying that 174.50 dip, then we want to be trimming at 175.90 really before then. 176.75, we want to be down to a pretty small position on the chance we don't break it. But if we do break it, you still have runners. Again, it's going to be that same upside 179.33 target. However, I know people love to be short, and we have, like I've been saying on all of these, a lot of names. It's sort of inflection points in the market. And so downside, I need to see this same little type of zone break. I would love to see the 20 SMA break. I want to see it below 174.15. I would really want to see it even likely below this 173.80 wick here. But I didn't want to have too many levels there. And if all of those break, we just have this little gap fill here that's going to be the first major target. I think if all of these do break, we get that $1.50 move all the way down to 172 super, super quick. And then if that move holds, you target the 200 day. So on my notes, what I have is break 173.8, targeting 172.4, 170.5, which is, the 200-day SMA, and then ultimately 170 right below it. I won't be surprised to see a little wick below there. So break of really anywhere this 174 to 173.80 zone, that's where I'm looking. Again, you have to always, always, always be cautious of any of these previous lows. Look how many times we've bounced here. You kind of want to assume that's going to happen again. So be cautious until we're giving up those lows, and then look for that nice, really quick move downside. And so be set up for both. If we can pull back to this little zone, the 174 up to 174.60 area, I like that bounce. The SMAs have been providing excellent, excellent moves on basically all the big names. So definitely what I'm watching there on it. Would love the bounce trade, would love the short trade. Either one, I think we get a nice quick move on it. So love an AMD this week. Or Amazon this week, rather, sorry. And then on to the next one, AMD. Oh, we got flips in here. Yeah, below 174 to 170, I'm right there with you. You know, if you want to be a stickler, just a little bit less. But right here, AMD. So you know, AMD was another one. I mean, we had thankfully we had long and short plans on every single thing last week, you know. And so AMD did amazing. What we said last week was that it has a few things going for it. Ooh, let's get this one going for it. And so what we said last week, you know, mostly focused down here, was AMD had a few things going for it. We said, you know, we were doing it on Sunday, and we said on Monday, on Monday when it opens, it's going to be opening outside of the trend for the very first time. We've seen consolidation on it for the very first time. It held that 78.6. I mean, almost to the cent. I bet if I drew it better, it might have been even to the cent. And then we were saying when this candle opens, we are now going to be outside of the trend. And so our plan last week was if we were above trend around 133 to 134 area, I would be looking to trade long, ultimately looking to that 138-ish area. And if I'm going to trade short, I have exactly no interest in being short on AMD until it breaks below the 130 to 128 area and the trend. Obviously, the 133, 134 long came into play. Short did not come into play. And then we were targeting 139 up to this 140 area. We were assumed we'd be fighting this area. We didn't. We pushed 10 bucks past our profit target. So time to get ourselves, you know, a nice new chart going. And so that's what I've done on AMD here as far as levels that I'm personally watching. How am I feeling on it overall? I think that, you know, our trade plan worked perfectly for us. It's now kind of found itself in another tricky place. You know, we're at 148.50. You know, we've broken above these recent levels. I meant to put the fibs on this one too. We've broken above these recent levels. We're holding above that 38.2% fib. My issue with this right now is we got 150 right overhead. So I think that we have a couple of, things overhead that will make me not be diving in long. But I will say, if we're holding this 148.50, I do think we get a really nice scalp up there to, you know, that 150 area quickly. However, being long into something like 150 is just like typically not a very good idea when you're coming into those whole numbers. So you can take this 148.5 hold looking for the bounce to 150 if you want. However, the less risky one, I'm going to be looking for a break and hold of the 150 area. I think that, you know, we don't have a lot in the way. I think really this 150.65, I didn't even put it on the chart. I think if we can break and hold that 150 area, we push up there to this 153, 154 area real quick. And then if we're able to push above those, we now have some really big resistance. We got the 200-day, we got the 50 SMA. You know, statistically speaking, they will do something. So you really want to start to be careful here on any of your longs, 150, 450, all the way up to that 156 area. You want to be careful there. These levels work over and over. We can see the rejection off the 200, the break of the 200. You know, these are some of, I preach it, Tilio preaches it. SMAs are some of the most important levels on the chart. Ignoring them on the daily chart. Ignoring them is never, ever a good idea. So I'd love to see the break over 150, get us up there to that 156 in a hurry, and then wait to see how the market reacts. Do we reject and try to buy the dip? Do we break above and try to buy a retest? We let the market tell us what to do. And so again, for me, and I got to be honest, I'm not personally super looking short on AMD, but long, I have two plans, you know, 148.5 pullback, looking for the scalp to 150. That's really it. Maybe you luck out and get the early entry on the push upside, or maybe you take that really nice stop, you know, just drop below 148 or so and stop out and look again at this 38.2. You know, I don't like to run a $2 wide stop on something like AMD. I think that's way too wide. So really a loss of my entry level is where I'm going to be stopping out. But break and hold that, look for 150. Break and hold 150, ultimately look for that 156, 150, you know, 150, 450, 156 area. And that's where you want to kind of ease off the gas on AMD, at least in my opinion. And then for, you know, if you do want to look for downside, I'm not really going to be looking to short in any of this zone right here. I would want to see that 38 given up, then, or 38.2, then you're real close to 145. So again, you can look for the scalp. Maybe we get a little minor trend break, but I'm not going to be looking much lower than 140 if it comes, and I would wait for that 145 break, really. But again, you guys know I don't like to trade short that often, so I won't really be watching for that. Not to say there won't be some intraday scalps on it short or anything, but how the market is setting this up, it's setting it up for a push up. So now we know where can we safely, follow it on that push up. Oh yeah, look, flips 160. I'm right there with you other than these. I think that 160, 162 area, obviously the 61.8 retrace is going to be the next target. But man, when you got the 200 and the 50 in the way, that tends to be a roadblock. But yeah, 160 ultimately, and then eventually that trend test. And so last one from me, NVIDIA. NVIDIA was yet another one that, one of our trade plans that worked really, we've talked it every week in here. Another one of our trade plans that, looked really nice, ended up working out substantially better than we thought. And so last week on NVIDIA, as funny as it sounds to say it now, we were looking at this consolidation and saying to ourselves, for the first time, like NVIDIA's, in a couple of months, NVIDIA's filled its gap. All of a sudden, we're getting some consolidation on some big volume after selling, and then we're coming in to its trend, it's bouncing the major levels. It's holding that 100 like we would, of course, expect it to, like I hope it would. And we were looking for it to potentially be long because, maybe catch a bit of an earnings run up on it. And then we wanted to see this trend break. And so what I had said on NVIDIA last week was that, I was going to be looking for trend break, break of 107, or 107, 108 area, pull back of that break of 107 to 108 area. And then we wanted to, I wrote down safely be above the trend, which I'm assuming is get a nice strong close above the trend is what we were talking about. And then my targets on that pullback were 108.70, 111, and then 113.25 and 115.8. As you can see, we're now like miles above that. All of our targets were met. All of our targets were ripped through. If we traded them on those intraday charts, it was really nice. We were getting those beautiful support and resistance bounces like we would want, beautiful ranges to trade in, really, really nice price action on NVIDIA. And so now going into this new week, got to have eyes on NVIDIA again, still have earnings coming. And so that's what we want to watch for. And I wonder what I named this one. I thought it oh, there it is. So coming into the week. So, was feeling slightly bullish on NVIDIA. Obviously broke this other major trend here, just to point that out. Was feeling slightly bullish on NVIDIA last week. Feeling substantially less bullish on it this week. We're coming up to this daily trend. And so I'm being careful long here personally. We filled the gap and then we ultimately rejected this little, full gap fill that we got here. I know this wick was close, but, we're filling the gap on the upside now. So if I'm trying to trade NVIDIA right now on the long side, I'm kind of looking at it two ways. One is really a break above this 125, and I'll look for it to run to that trend, 127-ish area, 126.75, 127.50 area. It's NVIDIA. So of course, if we really get the buying, they could push this 128.36, but I'm really looking for this trend. I didn't mark a level there. The only one that I liked was this one, but I guess we'll leave it there because we should, and we should have that level on our chart. We had so much weirdness going with NVIDIA, all through July that I didn't love this level. We should have it on there. But so for me, if I'm looking long, I'm looking long above 125, not looking for a whole lot more than, like I said, this trend, 127, 128, whatever comes first, that's really all I'm looking for on NVIDIA. If I was really looking for a long trade that I liked on NVIDIA, I'm looking for a pullback to this 50 SMA, this 120 area. You'll obviously be likely buying into it on a nice and red day if we're going to pull back $4.50. But that's where I like it, and I like it more there because the risk reward is more solid. If we're able to get a pullback to this SMA, get a pullback to this 120, 123, or 120.3 area, then your stop's going to be tight below you because you're giving up a major SMA, you're giving up an important little zone to the left side. And so your stop is just tight. It's going to have little risk. And then by waiting for the pullback as opposed to trying to buy into the breakout before it comes, we're getting in at $4 or $5 better of a price. And we have some nice targets. We got that 121.2, we got the 123.28, and we have the 125, which is ultimately our target. So if we're able to get this pullback, or our entry target. Anybody who's taken the early breakout trade and gets smoked is now able to, they're hurting while we're trimming out of our positions coming into the trend. So my ideal trade on NVIDIA is trying to buy the pullback on it, 120 to 121 area, somewhere in there. Ideally looking for 125 in trend, 127, whatever comes. As far as shorting it, I don't have any interest until below this 50 SMA and the 120. Not to say that a $4 move down on NVIDIA isn't going to offer a nice short, but on a parabolic move like this, I just don't do it. Like, I know everybody loves to try to short NVIDIA or long NVIDIA when it's dying, but I just wait for the easy trade because I've seen too many people get blown out, especially, I just don't like shorting it. I don't know what else to say. I mean, if we break 120, I can for sure tell you I will not be short myself. But if I did look short, that's likely where I would be looking. But it's just not for me. I would rather look for a dip to buy on that. We got NVIDIA earnings on the 28th. I mean, I got some shares on it to see what happens, but we're just gonna have to see what NVIDIA does. But my ideal world is we kind of range around in this, maybe even all the way down to 118 up to 125. Give us that all the way into earnings, and I'll be a happy camper. And so for me, that is it. But let's hear some trades from you guys or any questions, what I had to say on SPY, QQQ, any of it. Or I guess I'll give you my rundown again because I've been doing it simple. Oh, yeah, look, there's flips. Don't short NVIDIA, LOL. Exactly. Best advice ever. So just quick rundown on my NVIDIA trade, what I'd be looking for. My ideal trade, pull back to the 120, 121 area and that 50 SMA, targeting 120, 121.2, 123.2, 125, and ultimately 128, 127 if we can get up there. Downside, like I said, not me, but I say break and hold of 120, not before. And then targeting 118.8, 117, 115.4, and then if they really get crazy, that 112. But for me, that's it. Take it. Hold on. Flips, are you there? I asked you to unmute if you want to say what's up. I figured you did.
What up, bro?
Yo, how we doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing good, dude, doing good. Just checking out some charts, dude, getting excited for the week, man. We've been so spoiled these last 2 weeks. It's been so fun to trade that I hope we have another week like that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for this week for some small pullbacks.
Yeah, I'm
Uh
hoping on it. That's why I tried to give up ups and downsides on everything this week,
yeah,
just because after a move like this, I'm not saying short the market, but you have to at least like hope we get a pullback to buy at least.
yeah, I'm expecting some kind of pullback to consolidation and probably next week or towards the middle of the end of the week to have another run, hopefully.
Yep, that's what I'm hoping for too. That's what I'm
Yep.
hoping too. Okay, well, right on, man. I'm gonna pull up a couple more charts. Feel free to chime in. Let's see. Oh, I see somebody saying T. Let's talk it. Here we go. We talked it on last Thursday. We said we bought that dip to 19. We caught a ripper on it. These things were real nice. Best stock ever. Ooh, Kelly's about to get herself banned. Kelly's about to be banned. Next up, Meta. Oh yeah, so T, of course, man, keep buying the dip to this trend. This thing's that's just free money all the time. Meta. Ooh, that's a bad one. Let's get just So Meta, I was actually looking at, I never trade this thing. I hate the contracts on Meta. I hate all of that. Meta I was looking at because of this. Meta's been in, and you've heard people have heard me say to Mastermind, saying, "Oh, is this a range day?" It's like, well, sure, but it's a $6 range, so you should be fine. Meta has been in a range. The range is $80, and even a little less. I probably should have that just a little touch lower because I did want it on here. To me, this was sort of the meta range. This basically 520-ish area that we're now trying to break above it again. I think on meta, we have a potential for a trade here. I don't trade it often because, the contracts are weird. A lot of the time, you really kind of want to run a wider stop, as much as you guys know I don't like saying that, just because of how they move. And, you're dealing with a $500 stock with not amazing liquidity by any means. So those contracts move weird. You kind of need to run the stop a little bit wider. And I think that, like I thought that earnings were going to be the thing to run us out of it, but earnings didn't, they didn't hold the earnings move at all. Brought us back down to basically the bottom of the range. Now we're back outside of the top of the range. If I'm long at the top of this range, I'm not long below 520, no matter what. And I like the entry at this 524, but I'm not looking for some giant meta style move here. We have this previous high at this the 530-ish area. We had the previous high up here at 543 area. $10, plenty of space to make money, but it's limited upside. I like the entries down here. I like the short entries up here for potential bigger retraces or bigger bounces. That's just me. But on meta right now, I think 520 is basically the spot everybody should have their eyes on. And then, of course, your 530s, your 540s, anywhere we've had recent highs. But I'm just treading lightly on meta long up here. Like I said, I would much rather break back into this range and give us a nice short, give us another 500 retest would be cool. But that's just me on meta. Look at Tesla. Oh yeah, you like that, Kelly? Yeah, let's check out Tesla. That thing just can't get its feet under itself. Let's make a mastermind. So, the most important thing to always point out that no matter what, when you are charting Tesla, this is what everybody needs to watch. This is like the most important line on the chart. Weekly trend. That it is one of the last big names or names that matter that cannot hold above it. And so that's always what we want to take note of. And then on something like Tesla that has been so sideways really for so long, down here, I find a lot of my levels on the weekly chart just because I want to see where did weeks turn around, so I like to mark these major weekly highs, the major weekly lows. And when Tesla's doing this kind of stuff, it's horrible to trade. You want to catch Tesla when it's taking these big moves. And so you want to try to identify where those big moves might come from because Tesla sucks when it's doing like this. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's money to be made, but like I want Tesla when it's ripping. And so, and or dying, whatever. I actually like it much more when it's dying. So right here, I'm looking at Tesla right now, and you guys know me. I mean, I have no interest in being short at like major numbers, but break trend, break 220, find some buyer volume. This thing will likely fly to that 200 SMA, at least 230, but I got no interest in being long Tesla here. We can even zoom in on the daily. No interest in being long Tesla here. I want it, I want it out here. I want it above the 220. We're obviously getting some adjustment because I did it on the weekly, but I want it above 220. I want it above the weekly trend. And that's where I'll look to be long on Tesla, and then targeting these 230s, of course, you got to trim on the way. I'm giving you guys exclusively major targets and let, Flips and Tilio explain how they do intermediate targets. I mean, both of them do it almost, we all do it almost the same. But these are major targets. These aren't just, these are where you want to really start considering exiting your trade or at least dramatically reducing the position. And so for me, break a 220, break a trend, look for 225, look for 230, 234. But because I don't like Tesla, my preferred trade would likely be some continued sideways movement, gradual push to 220 and trend over here, and then a nice short off of it and run it back to not only 200 the price, but the 200-day SMA. But right now, right here, for me, very little interest short on it. Uh, just because, that's not, I don't take, I don't like being, an intraday, it happens on occasion off of those daily lows. But I don't like being the first person in the trade. I don't want to be the one that's trying to catch the bottom or catch the top. Sometimes it happens, but it's not what I like to, go looking for. Yeah, that's really it for me on Tesla. I don't, I just, yeah, and really just in a tricky spot to trade. I'd want it over that 220, or I'd want a hard rejection under 217.50. Again, looking for that 200 day. But that's just me, always trades to be had on it intraday, but I like it when it's at those major places where it can really do a big $5, $6 rip in a day. Okay, well, that's gonna do it. Happy Sunday scan, Flips. Thanks for being here. Thanks for chiming in. Maybe he already left, but thanks for being here, Flips. You're the goat if you're already gone. Yep, he gone. Okay, well, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Sunday night scan. I got my notes on it. I'll uh I'll try to see if maybe Tilio can do that thing where he made it like, oh, Flips is still here. There we go. Flips, my brother. Love that guy. Okay, well, thank you all so much. I'll see if Tilio wants to get some of these trade ideas posted. I'll probably ask him tomorrow. But thank you all so much. I appreciate you being here. And as always, thanks to, Flips and Tilio letting me be even a small part of this mastermind. I feel real lucky. So thank you all for showing up. Awesome time. And we will catch you tomorrow. Nah, Flips, you the goat. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Okay, everyone, have a great night. We'll catch you later.